Hi guys and welcome to another Hero of the Week. This week's hero is Alastair Campbell, who took lumps out of the Chancellor Rishi Sunak, who he suggested pushed hard for Brexit because it would benefit people like him and perhaps Sunak himself. I've said before that Brexit was two-tier. In order to get voters to back it, they needed to rile them up with something like keeping the foreigners out. Lies were told about Turkey, lies were told about the NHS waiting lists, lies were told about schools not being able to cope. But the other aspect of Brexit was for the super rich. Brexit maintained the status quo. And as we've seen over the last number of years, the EU has been clamping down on tax havens and places where the mega rich want to hide their money. Have a listen to Alastair say stuff that the Labour Party seemed too afraid to mention.
One of the reasons why the Brexiteers were so keen on Brexit was because the European Union was about to bring in moves against tax avoidance, moves against the use of tax havens, and so forth. That is one of the things that drove them so hard to Brexit. And I'm afraid I am suspicious. I'm sorry, but I am. I do think that is perhaps part of the reason why Rishi Sunak ultimately fought so hard for Brexit.
Well, if they were here, I'm sure they would say something completely different than
what. But listen, he's not exactly putting himself forward for questioning on this, is he? And I think that the other thing is in the big league now, and if you're in the big league in public life and in politics, I'm afraid, whether you like it or not, scrutiny is part of the job. Defending yourself in the face of difficult questions is part of the job. And instead of hiding away with his personal photographer, he should put himself in front of people like you and face these questions. He should put himself in front of MPs and face these questions. Stop playing the victim. Stop pretending that he's Will Smith or Joe Root, that nonsense he came out with last week, and get focused on understanding why people are so angry that they are having to pay extra tax, despite a manifesto promise to the contrary, despite the promises of all the Brexit dividend and all the other lies that they told, and start focusing on them instead of bleating about the treatment that he's getting himself.
Well, sir, and I really wish the Labour Party would reach out to Alastair Campbell and say, please come back and work for us, because he's direct. He calls out the crap as he sees it. He doesn't let the Tories off the hook. Now, notice the difference with the Labour Party. The Labour Party will call out the Conservative Party, but they won't call out individuals like in the way that Alastair Campbell is doing here. And you know, they're tiptoeing a bit around Brexit as well. Now there are reasons for that, but I think it's important that they have somebody like Alastair Campbell or Alastair Campbell himself calling this out on their behalf. But he's right here. Brexit, and I've covered it before, how I believe that Brexit was two-tier. As I said at the beginning of this, you know, one part was for the racists and the bigots, we need to keep them happy, but the other side was for the donors, the people who backed it, the financial muscle. They wanted Brexit because, as they saw coming down the road, the European Union clamping down on tax havens and tax avoidance. They needed to protect that. They realized, look, if we push this through, we leave the European Union, we can make our own rules. We can protect ourselves from, you know, this type of legislation. And I'm not talking about specific legislation. I'm just talking about a general push within the European Union to clamp down on all of this. And, you know, you even have the Queen herself squirreling money away. This is bad for the economy. This is bad for the exchequer. And Rishi Sunak, instead of focusing on closing these loopholes, ending these tax havens or access to these tax havens, he's gone in the opposite direction. And he's imposing a tax on people. And let's call it what it is. It's a Brexit tax. Why is the national insurance contribution hike a Brexit tax? Because Boris Johnson and people like Sunak, I don't know if Sunak himself said it, but Boris Johnson in particular, who's Prime Minister at the moment, sold people the idea, if we leave the European Union, we'll have £350 million a week extra for the NHS. What is the reason for the national insurance contribution hike? Well, we don't have enough money for the NHS. So it's basically a Brexit tax. And I hope more people call it out for what it is, a Brexit tax. Alastair Campbell is our Hero of the Week. I'll see you next time for our next Hero of the Week.